Welcome to the simple solution to almost any problem that you probably won't believe. And before I get into that, do you want to live a life when you can say what you want, do what you want, be anything you want in any moment, in any part of your life, just because it feels right to you? You want to live a life to the fullest expression of who you could be? Then becoming superhuman could be for you. If you're interested in that, send me a private message. Tell me, I want to become superhuman, and I'll let you know how that could happen. So, the simple solution to almost any problem that you probably won't believe. And it really is very simple. And I wrote out a list actually of some stuff. It's almost anything. So here's a list of the things that this will solve. Okay. Lacking confidence, feeling anxious, socially or any other way, fearful, phobias, depression, finding purpose, making friends, a loving relationship, losing weight, getting fit, going on a diet of some kind, running a marathon, having a successful career, entrepreneurship, making money, selling, getting clients, becoming a better writer, a better actor, a better performer, working in the movies actually, like to a high standard, like in Hollywood movies, running a company, global company, leadership, communication, interviews, being able to get the kind of careers that are incredible to you, impossible goals, parenting, caring for loved ones when they're sick and dying, expertise in anything, and of course, and not least, sex. So this is the simple solution to almost any problem, anything you want to achieve in life. It isn't self-belief, definitely not. It isn't affirmations, and it isn't any of those things. Those things can be useful, but they tend to be obstacles, because you often have to think you have to do that before you can have what you want. This goes beyond all of that to the real simplicity that life can be, and that is to work, to put in the work. Now, what may happen as I start sharing this, your mind goes, no, it can't be that. Surely not. And you may have tried it and go, I've tried it before and it didn't work for me. People often don't really know the kind of work to do. That's often the problem. It isn't that work is the issue or work doesn't work. It's that you're doing the wrong work. It's because when it comes to the work can often be psychological or emotional. Working as a life coach, right? I come across this. It's simple. You want something, you do it. And you do it as badly as you do it until you get better at it. You've got a problem that you want to overcome, you do something about it, and eventually that problem gets better. You find a way around it, right? It's really simple. You see it with kids. You give them like some puzzles to solve. They may be frustrated, they don't get it. As long as you leave them to it and don't interfere with them, eventually they'll figure it out and they will find their own solutions around it. That's what will happen. It's natural to do that. And yet for some reason, as we grow older, well, let's say for some reason, because of a bunch of conditioning and a bunch of stupid messages that get permeated through society and through the world of personal development, suddenly this thing that we all have the ability to do becomes lost. And it becomes, rather than be something that we can, like a verb, a doing thing, which is anything that you've got a problem with, you do something about, it becomes wrapped in identity. And so it's like, I'm not worthy of this. I just lack confidence. Well, if I had the confidence, I could do it. I can tell you now, you never get the confidence, no matter. And don't forget, I trained a lot in NLP, helped others to train in it too. So I'll be in that whole world of let's try and remember a time when you felt confident. And really build that up, and you create it to the highest level. Then you create an anchor of some kind, and then when you're in that moment, that thing you want to do, you reactivate it. It's not the same, that can have its use, but I've found that to be detrimental because it moves away from the fact that you're more empowered than that. You don't need gimmicks, you don't need tricks. What you need to do is figure out what the real work is, and to do that. And that's really when it comes to like creating your own challenges. That's what it is. So if you're lacking confidence, for instance, in meetings at work, this comes up quite regularly, right? So in a meeting at work, you hold back from speaking up. So you don't feel quite confident enough to say everything in that moment of doing that. Well, what challenge could you create to solve that problem? Well, the challenge could be very simple. If you never speak up in the meeting, because it's very context dependent, right? If you never speak up in the meeting, you never have so far, you've kept very quiet, you only speak up if you're spoken to, right? That could be what it is. So the initial challenge could be, early in the meeting, you say something. You ask a question even. You get your voice heard very early, and then see what happens. By doing that, just by doing that one simple thing, it's possible that it opens up the neural pathways. That means, oh, I'm speaking now in this group, so you've got that experience. And now when the dialogue happens, actually it becomes easier because you've opened that up. Now, it may not work for you, it depends. It's very context individual dependent. But that's the kind of thing. You create small or big challenges directly linked to what you need to do. But there's always work to be done. This came up with a client the other day, actually. It occurred to me. He'd been having trouble in his life, and I realised what it was finally. It took me a while, actually, because he'd been doing some good work in lots of areas. But there was some things holding him back, and I realised you don't know what hard work is. It was like assessing his life and what he's done. He doesn't know what it is to feel like the burden of carrying the weight of working. Now, again, sometimes that's long hours, sometimes it's caring for someone else. There's many different types and forms of work, but he didn't know that. So of course, when he comes up against challenges now, it feels heavy. This happened to me, when I went from junior school to senior school. So I was very good at things, just naturally. I was good at stuff, and I was encouraged to do things, but I never really had any direct challenge until I got to senior school. Suddenly, this big world. Everyone was smarter than me. Everyone had done a lot more study than me. They could speak French already, a lot of these kids, and I'm like, oh dear, I am. I can't. I went to go in a school play because I was always in the school plays, and I went and auditioned, and it was Wizard of Oz, and I was singing, and my voice cracked, and I didn't get the part. I ended up being a munchkin. Now, if you know me, I'm like 6'3" almost, right? So it's like I was a munchkin. What that did to my fragile ego back then was crush me. Actually, is what it did. So I didn't go for any plays after that. And also, when it came to schoolwork, because I'd never actually had to work to be the best, I just hadn't. In my school, it was like an ordinary primary school, and I was actually quite advanced from a young age. I was actually kept back a year or two, which probably didn't help. And so, just because I was too young, there was this weird thing when I was too young to be in the year, so they actually almost like created another year for me. It was bizarre. But what it meant was that I probably should have been at least a year ahead. And so I was kept back in that way, which means I wasn't stimulated, wasn't challenged. So I didn't actually get any challenge to my schooling till I got to senior school. And then I was just overwhelmed. And rather than meet the challenge and go, right, what I could have done is work harder, right? Put more hours in. But I'd never done it, didn't know that was a thing, and just kind of avoided the whole thing. And so the work for me would have just been understanding my limitations of like maths, for instance. I was always the top in maths in primary school. In senior school, I went to the bottom class. So it's, but rather than just go, right, I just need to put more hours in. I need to speak to someone who's really good at this and get maybe extra tuition and all this kind of stuff. I just went, oh, I'm just not good at maths. I'm just not good at this, and I'm just not good at plays, and all these identity level things got laid upon me, and it created a lot of problems in my life. It wasn't until many years later, really, when I realised, oh, I need to stimulate myself and create challenges and overcome them to be able to do anything that I want in life. They need to work through challenge. It's very important, but it is about what is difficult for people is often choosing, and what may be difficult for you is choosing the right challenge. Choosing the correct challenge that will make the impact that you want, that will actually give you the confidence, overcome the anxiety, and enable you to become like incredibly successful, to become a powerful leader, to be able to, to have a successful business, whatever it is for you. Get that incredible relationship that you desire. You don't necessarily understand which challenges, which work that you need to do. And that's where having support is really important. Actually, it's why I've got 3 coaches currently, and I've had coaches and support and friendships and all these things for years. In the past 5 years that I've developed, to nourish me and support me in creating everything I want. It's quite important in this way, because our eyes look outwards, right? It's actually hard to look in that way. That's why that support is so important. So that was vital. So it's the right kind of challenge. An example of this was actually years ago. So I wasn't even that good a coach at the time, if I'm honest with myself. This was before I really learned what powerful coaching was. However, I still had a good intuitive sense of things, and I had started embracing challenge in this way. So I was working with someone, she's an athlete, and the problem was when a professional athlete is training, a lot of the training is solo or it is in small groups, and you go to the training ground, right, the track and all that, and it's very quiet there a lot of the time. People are doing things at different times of the day. It tends to be quite quiet. So when they're practicing and training, like she's a sprinter, it's very different to what it is come competition. Now you go to a meet, especially one of the big ones, and you could have thousands of people there, right, watching, or let alone if there's TV cameras too. And then where you're maybe hanging out with your friends or people that you know that are at a similar kind of level to you, or people you hang out with in your profession, in your sport, suddenly you're there against like world beaters. You're there against some of the best professionals in the world. And for her, it was like lining up on the start line, 200-meter sprint. And so when she got to that, not only was her attention on like the crowd and being watched by them, but it was also on looking at her competitors and thinking about what's going through their mind. Should she be there with them, and all this stuff. And there were lots of things around that actually. So I was working there for some time. There was a sticking point. There's something she wasn't willing to do, and it emerged for me what would be the perfect challenge for her. But this is very specific to her, and we'd already done some work together. The challenge became to go to somewhere public in the street and do 2 minutes of dancing. That was the challenge. And it may sound bizarre in what it is. However, for her, it was a huge deal to do that. There was a lot of resistance to doing it. So I had to actually say to this client, I will not coach you again until you've done this. So if you don't do it, we're never coaching again, because there's no point just talking about it. This is like, I think this will do it. I've just got, from the work we've done so far, I was pretty sure this would do it, because it just wrapped up everything into a single moment, which is the ideal challenge. And so that was the challenge. And she actually set herself a greater challenge. Actually, she put a flower in her hair. She wore this dress, just to stand out a little bit more. So I really liked that she upgraded the challenge too. And then she stood outside Mind in the high street. So she's going to dance there for 2 minutes, right? And obviously they may think that she's got special needs or something. So adding that extra layer of judgment onto what she's doing. And then while she was doing it, I remember her saying that there was this dust cart driving past real bloody slowly, and these guys obviously, picking up the rubbish, watching her. But she did this 2 minutes of dancing, right? So she met the challenge. Awesome, my clients, then they do that. It's such a beautiful moment. And so she did that, buzzing afterwards. Went to the next meet, done. That was it. It was the self-consciousness of that particular thing was burned out. And there's a beautiful side effect. So this wasn't something we talked about. It wasn't even explored in any way. But she had a terrible fear of public speaking, so hated it. So whenever she'd get the opportunity to do it, she'd pass it on to someone else, is what she had been doing. But this time she couldn't, and so she had to do this thing. Now, we weren't talking at this particular time. She just went and did it. And she was on the train, she's freaking out, really trying to get out of it in her mind. That moment of panic that you have, and you're like, there must be a way I can escape, but there was no escape. And so she got there, and it's actually like a big bank in London, and she was going to speak in front of all these CEOs, managing directors, and all these business people, like bankers. And so she had to present on the stage and deliver something. And what she said was this, and she was freaking out and was dreading it and wished she could get out of it, up until the moment when she stepped onto that stage and people were there, and then it was done. She actually felt calm. She was able to deliver. Not only that, but she did such a good job that they asked her to stay on to hand out prizes and things like that. So that's, when you get the work right, when you get the challenge right, suddenly it has this catalyst effect on things that you can't imagine. And that is it's simple, but it's normally quite hard, right? It can be challenging emotionally or psychologically, and that's where people get stuck when it comes to that stuff. But so So what I've been talking for a while, right? So I'd like to hear from you if you're willing to share something. Like, first off, as I've been sharing this, and the solution being the work, what is something that you want to either do or overcome that now I've shared this, you're like, yes, I know the work I need to do, and then go do it. And then also, is there anything challenging? You're like, you know what, it may work for that, but it's not going to work for this. What is that? What do you think it couldn't work for? What do you think working couldn't work for? Share that in the comments here. I'll either see it now or I'll see it when I check back later. I really want you to get this, because if you do, life becomes simple and you achieve things and life expands rapidly if you get to do this. And this is what's available to you. So if this life of work and challenge, which can sound heavy, but actually it's not. It's actually a lot of fun. It's, how you feel afterwards just feels incredible. And you get to live this all the time, right? Never being held back again. If that's the kind of life that you want, then becoming superhuman, the exceptional, unique, and potentially the only course of its kind that's ever existed before, next year may be for you. I'll be opening up applications very, very soon now. If you are interested, send me a message and just tell me, I want to become superhuman. And I'll tell you how you can. I love this. It's a beautiful thing, because I get, as well as obviously, during these lives, I love getting messages from people, not just saying about coming to the program, but also people just sharing with me the meaning it has for them. How these things change their lives. I love coming back and seeing some of the comments later. People like watching it back and having the realizations. So if that's you, please come back and tell me. Either tell me in here or tell me in a message. That is important, because the more I know resonates with you, the more I can help others, right? Because if it stands out for you, it stands out for others. And it's cool to know, the impact these things are having. It's why I do it, So thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. I hope to see you again very soon too. So when it comes to the work, it can be psychological, it can be emotional. Oftentimes you'll know inside what the work is, but you won't necessarily, be willing to do it. Because it's hard. It's hard. It's not hard in the application. It's hard in the imagination. That's where it tends to be hard. In the moment, of course, you can do more than you think you can. That's an important, just basic realization. Most problems are in the thinking about what you're going to do. All of the feelings you get, potential fears or whatever emotions may come up before you do something, priming you ready to do it. So that obviously the bigger the distance between your imagining and your action, the bigger it gets, and the feelings grow as well. So it's always good to take action sooner, to do the work sooner, because you grow quicker, life evolves faster. In fact, one of my clients runs this company, a very huge company, and one of the things, very simply, was to connect with people who might want to invest in the company. We talked about this before, but she didn't do anything with it. And then we had a conversation a few weeks ago. She had this realization where, because there's this one person in particular, right? She sent the message, got a response fairly quickly, and now there's a potential investment for her company, right? Perfect. So I shared this with her. I said, well, what if you had done that once a week for the past 2 years when I first mentioned it? What might that have created? What might you have created back then? How might that have evolved now? Who knows what your life could have become if you'd just done that work very initially when it was first suggested. But now, obviously, it's begun. Guess what? She's doing the work, and it's worthwhile to do the work, because life is precious, life is short, and we need to make the most of it as much as possible. It's why the becoming superhuman to me is so important, because it's a greater standard for living. It's a greater standard for what you're willing to do each day. You demand more of yourself, and you get to create more, and then the people around you demand more of themselves too, because of course you grow together with the people that are around you. It's really important. Now, when it comes to work and challenges, actually, and things like this, a lot of coaches, life coaches, probably other coaches too, get it wrong. And what they get wrong is they call themselves like accountability, right? You've got to have accountability. And the way they do it is the problem, not necessarily the accountability, because it can be useful if it's leveraged well. But what it is, so this is how a lot of them do it. So someone will say they're going to do something and they don't. And the coach either will message them and go, have you done that thing yet? You know, you said you're going to do it this time. You said you're going to message me at this time, but you haven't. And they're on their case, you know, chasing them up and, you know, barking at them and telling them off essentially. Or they just speak to them afterwards and they go, I didn't do it. And they go, well, you obviously don't want it enough. You know, you obviously don't, you know, and then they sort of berate them almost and make them feel a bit crappy because they haven't done the thing. And the truth is, this is the way I like to describe this. It's like, if you've set the correct challenge, by the way, because it may not. Maybe they set a challenge that was too big for that person at that time. Maybe it was the wrong sort of challenge. Maybe they didn't check in, it was meaningful enough. Maybe it just was a rubbish challenge. You know, maybe it wasn't good enough. There are many, this is why this is the art, actually, is the correct challenge. That is the art with this. But of course, with experimentation, as much as you can use experts, and I recommend it, you can just test things out yourself as long as you make sure you're paying attention and tracking your own results, right? You can. But the art is in the right challenge. So let's assume it's the correct challenge for this person. This is the way I see it. This is the way I see a challenge when I set them for my clients. The challenge I set you is essentially saying something like this. If you climb to the top of that mountain, which is hard, you're going to be tired. You're going to want to give up at times. But you can do it. It's within your realms of capability. You climb that mountain there. By the time we speak again, at the top of that mountain are riches and rewards, and a gift of life is there. You may never want for anything ever again once you get to the top of that mountain, once you've achieved this, when, you know, connected to what their dream is. That's what's at the top of this mountain, right? And that's what the challenge is for. The challenge isn't the challenge. The challenge is for the dream. The challenge is for the extraordinary life that you get to live. That's what the challenge is for. So it's like, when you get there, the gift is waiting for you. All you have to do is walk up there. And like I've said, I've warned you it'll be hard. We've agreed that it's hard, but you're willing to, haven't you? We've agreed it, feels good. The person's like, okay, I'm going to do it. We speak again in a couple of weeks. They haven't done it. And I'm like, why? So for me, rather than berating them or having a go at them or anything like that, I'm like, I get really curious. I'm like, why didn't you go and get the prize, the treasure that was waiting for you? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you work hard to create everything you want? You know, this was rapid as well. Like, you wouldn't have to wait years for this. If you'd have achieved that, you know, this is the catalyst effect. You know, the gold, the treasure is waiting for you, and you only had to go and get it. It was already there. We knew it was there because we'd spoken about it, and you could see it, and you didn't do it. Why? You know, and that's when I get very curious about that. And then we'd explore what was going on, and we tend to find either an emotional or psychological pattern that's getting in the way, and then we can adjust or adapt the challenge. But don't let I wouldn't let my client get away is the wrong word, but I wouldn't let the client let that go, because that's what they want. So then it's like, well, maybe you need to climb half the mountain first and get there, see what it's like there, see what it feels like to work that hard. And then you can see it, but like, okay, I'll come down, I'll come back next time for that. You know, there may be some incremental things required, or there may be, choose a different pathway, right, to get to that. You know, that might be required too. So that's a lot of the nuance that many life coaches will get wrong. They just don't, because that is, you know, it's taken me, you know, a lot of work on myself for years, plus working with hundreds of people deeply and seeing what works and hasn't, and really testing it to the nth degree to find this out. So it makes sense as to why they get this wrong. But that is what this is for. The work is for the treasure. You know, by working, this is the other thing, it's like working is responsibility. And if you carry more responsibility, you have to get stronger, right? Your legs have to be able to bear it, your arms have to get stronger. By bearing more weight, by working harder, you become more powerful. And it makes it easier for you to create everything you want in your life. So you want to work. You want to live a life where you work. And that's another thing I noticed with coaches, actually. I've worked with a lot, and I've consulted with a lot of coaches too, actually. And it's fascinating how little work a lot of them are willing to put in. When I say so, now they've got all the time in the world, right? Unless they've got children, it's different. But for the single coaches that I've worked with, you know, they've got no responsibilities except themselves. And I asked them, how many hours are you going to put in? They talk like in the realms of 20 or 30. That's what they talk in terms of. Now, it's not about the hours, but it is. There is a reality of when you're building something from scratch. There are layers. There's work needs to be done. You need to continue to develop your skills. That takes hours every day to do that. To get to a high enough standard that you're good at, you need to be working with people a lot. And to work with people, well, how do you even get into that? There's work to be done to be able to get to the point where people are saying, I want you to work with me, right? You need to learn about sales and marketing. You need to learn about if you want to grow your public profile to be able to create clients that way. You need to learn how to do that. You need to learn how to speak on video, how to speak on stage, or whatever. All the different parts that are required for you to excel in your profession. It takes a lot of work. So when it's always a red flag. It's interesting how often it comes up that people who've worked full time suddenly want to work hardly at all and still create incredible success. It's interesting. And this is the beautiful thing, about the work. The work, although it may feel hard at times, shouldn't feel like work when you're going to a job you didn't like. Like when I was working at my job for 17 years, right, same company. For a large part of it, I did not like the job. I was hating what I was doing for a long period of time, and that was reflected in my entire life. So I'm not talking about that kind of work. Although that I could have changed it if I'd have understood what I understood now, so I could have made better use of it earlier. But the truth is, the work should feel good. It should feel great to work hard. If it's a relationship you want, or you've got one and you want it to be doing better, work on that relationship. Give more attention, more kindness, more nurturing. Think about what the person needs. What kind of, how can you be better in that relationship? That can take a lot of work and attention. In fact, the client yesterday, we were talking about exactly that, about how he can do that for his wife and his family to be a better husband, better father, and the work that he can do to raise up that, so he can be an extraordinary father, extraordinary husband, even more so than he has been so far. There'll be sometimes he won't want to do it, right? Because he'd be tired, he's been working, and he comes home and he's got more work to do. But that's okay. But if you want it enough, that work should feel worthwhile. And as long as you're sleeping, you're getting a decent amount of sleep each night, we can handle far more load than we give ourselves credit for much of the time. So is this resonating with you? Does this make sense to your life? In fact, consider your life right now. Consider all the things you want, either things you want in the short term and the life you want in the long term. Like if you're looking 3 or 4 years from now, 'cause it's hard to look even further than that. 3 years is a good amount of time. What work do you need to do to create the things you want? Friendships, family, relationship, work, physicality. What do you want to achieve? And what work do you need to do? Do you need to restructure your calendar? Do you need to restructure priorities? Do you need to face your fears? Because that's most of the time. Fear is like such a primal driving force that it gets in the way. So much of the work that we need to do is actually through our fears, not around them, not avoiding and all this kind of stuff. It is through them. Often the spark of fear is the actual work that we need to do. And it can be a beautiful thing to allow ourselves to step through that window. So just check in with yourself and see what you need to do. In fact, this is one of the questions I ask my clients on a weekly basis, the coach clients that I'm training, and it is this. It's like, close your eyes for a moment. Just close your eyes. Yeah, close your eyes, I'm not just joking. And ask yourself this question. It is, what in your life needs most attention? So what in your life needs most attention? Just whatever comes up. It could be a relationship, friendship, work, your body. It could be anything. And then ask yourself this. It's like, what work do I need to do to make it better? What work do I need to do? And then do the work. So life is very simple. The complexity comes because we have a primal brain which responds extremely to fear and to what seems like ordinary situations as if is life or death. So we have that under the surface. Then we have this beautiful imagination and this mind which can can literally create worlds. We can close, like right now, for instance, if I say to you, imagine a purple earth. So the earth, you know the picture of the earth where you've got the blue, the thin blue line going around it of the ozone layer? Just imagine that being purple right now. Beautiful, bright purple. Just imagine the thin blue line of the earth, beautifully bright and beautifully purple. So depending on how well you did that will depend on how sharp your visual imagination is. But the fact that if you could even do it to a point, you know, even if you saw anything actually, for that matter, shows you the power of your imagination. And that's what's operating on top of this primal system. And so that's why it can seem overly complex. That's why after this video you may go, yeah, it's true for some things, but not everything. And there may be things that it isn't true for. I don't know at this moment. I can't think of anything that can't benefit from working harder. Like I've said, it's just the type of work that may need to be tweaked. The psychological, emotional, physical may need to be tweaked. So I wanted to share this because I'm reading about Navy SEALs at the moment. You know, as I'm developing my becoming superhuman stuff, I'm looking at astronauts. I'm speaking to astronauts. I'm speaking to people in the military. I want to know what they know and what their experiences are. So I'm reading lots of things. I'm adding to my repertoire is what I'm doing. And I want to say this quote from a Navy SEAL, what they learned on the battlefield that is very applicable for you right now and for all of us right now. And this is, we learned that leadership requires belief in the mission and unyielding perseverance to achieve victory, particularly when doubters question whether victory is even possible. We learned that leadership requires belief in the mission. So this is important, self-belief. Stop trying that, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're screwed, right? The mission though, believe in the mission, believe in what you want, believe in the work and do the work. That's more important, because then you can get into action over that, right? Self-belief, it's so ethereal. It's like, what the hell is it? It's a feeling, is it? How do you create that? What if you don't have it? Get rid of that. Believe in the mission. So believe in your mission. Believe in the things that you want. And what that means is give your attention to those things. And that's where your focus needs to be. And then unyielding perseverance. And this is what's lacking for most of us at different times in our life. If we're not achieving what we want financially, in our careers, in our relationships, in our friends, in just the cool shit we get to do in life, if we're not achieving those things, it's because we've probably not got enough perseverance, unyielding perseverance. You know, unyielding means you just keep going until you achieve your aim or you achieve something around that aim. So that's it. So focus on what you want and persevere. And if something isn't working, find a different way around it. Look at the work you need to do differently, and you can achieve pretty much anything, even things that seem crazy impossible, even things that for you right now may seem like they never happen. This is what I do with clients all the time. The dreams that seem impossible become actually stepping stones for their life, you know, very rapidly when you do this. And then the last thing he said was about, especially when doubters, especially when doubters question whether victory is even possible. Now that's not just about doubters from other people, that's your own doubts too. You know, even if you're doubting yourself, if you focus on the work, the mission, and you persevere, it doesn't matter how much you doubt it. It doesn't matter what you believe. What matters is you do the work, and then you create the evidence of your success, because it is inevitable. That's it there. Naomi, thank you. Such great clarity of thought. Thank you, Naomi. I'd love to know which specific clarity that you're talking about there. This is what it's really cool to get feedback that's very direct. So I'm just about to wrap up now. If you could share that, I would love that. It's really useful to know exactly what stood out from you from what I've just shared. So if this is sounding good to you, you're feeling like a call to action within you for your own life, you know, because you're empowered to create what you want. And you want to create something extraordinary. You want to focus your life in a way where you can become the superhuman version of yourself. Next year, the program I've got is just insanely beautiful. Bringing together my own experiences for years that have directly led to me creating the life of freedom that I have. The work I've done with hundreds of people and what I've learned through what's worked for them, what hasn't, what their limitations have been, and how I've created now challenges, which means they go through them. It's 100% success rate. And this is bold, I'm going for, by the way. I'm going for 100% success rate with this program. For the people that are in it, you go through it, you commit to doing it, and you just go through the program. You will become the superhuman version of yourself, and that means afterwards you will just be able to go and do and achieve anything you want. You won't have all the skills necessary. Skills still need learning depending on what you want, but you'll have the core nature that will enable you to do that. That's what this Becoming Superhuman program is. So if that sounds good to you, you want to become the superhuman version of yourself where you get to just create whatever you want in life and overcome any problem and be the person in your life that leads it, where you have all the responsibility for creating everything in it, message me. Tell me, I want to become superhuman, and let's talk about how that can happen. Thank you for being here. If you have any further comments and questions, post them. I do check back in later. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Becoming Superhuman. Thank you for being here.